So here's a few screen grabs of alternative things, and some of you have heard me talk about certainly some of this before in terms of the slide over on the right-hand side here, which I think is a much more authentic learning environment. So one of the things that we could do with students is to set big tasks for them to do, big picture items for them to do, so that those tasks are actually challenging. They involve the complete concepts that they're learning in their courses. It allows them to build on that learning, but it actually allows them to do something with it at the end. Now, I know in this case I've picked a particular example. I think for those of you who heard me say this before, this is like, build me a rocket 101. So we could actually have a whole course where the whole course is about building a rocket. Now, I know that's one extreme example, but it's a nice concept there about giving students a big challenging task to do, where first of all they have to work in groups because it's just physically impossible for them to do this task by themselves. It allows them to put into practice the learning that they do, and there's a very authentic assessment associated with this, is that the task could be make the rocket fly. And so that's a really nice summative assessment that you could get students to do in terms of whether it actually works or not. So that's one end of it. The other things that we can look at, I've got over on the left-hand side here. Of course, this is the bottom left-hand image there is from Second Life. And really the analogy here is what we'd really like our students to do is to explore these new types of environments that we have. And again, lots of people are doing this, but they're doing it certainly in a learning type of environment. But it's saying, well, okay, that's fine. They've just spent a lot of time doing this sort of things in the learning environment. How are we going to assess them? How do we actually set up assessment tasks in these types of environments that the students have just spent a lot of time learning how to use? And there is a steep learning curve for students in these types of environments. It's hard work for the students. It's hard work for the teachers. So it actually has to be worthwhile. And again, we're going to show some things today, but really, again, they're very simple things that we're showing, and we need to be able to set much more sophisticated things for students in these types of environments. And the top left-hand corner is really just trying to show a mix of these two things, because the one on the right-hand side is a completely physical environment we're looking at. The bottom left is a completely virtual environment, but the top left is actually a mixture of the virtual and the real. And so right at the end, we're just going to talk about augmented reality, where we start mixing the virtual and the real. And again, this is another area that we need to explore a lot more in terms of the assessment tasks that we set students. The image on the left-hand side is taken from a virtual laboratory equipment, where you're actually mixing virtual equipment. So you can see there's a image there of a desktop for a computer. You've got some dials, you've got some things you can change. But on the right-hand side of that image, there's actually a real physical bit of equipment that students can remotely control. So this is where we start moving into this area where we start mixing the things that we can do well in the virtual environment and the things we have to do in the real environment. So that's certainly the area that we would like to start moving into.